Hi everyone, I'm John Leggat, and I want to welcome you to our, I've been informed, our 9th town hall now. Last time we made a little bit of a change to the format. This is our new format, the Wandering CEO, so you bear with me a little bit. So what's going to happen this afternoon, for those of you who've been here, you'll probably, sorry. There's music coming out of this speaker over here. Okay. So are you saying this is now a lounge act and I need to start to sing? You do not want that. We're good to go? Okay. So the format for this afternoon is I'm just going to provide some updates, probably take about 20 minutes, and then we're going to have a break for coffee. And it's at that time, if you want to write out your question and submit it, you can do so. But we're really encouraging people, if they can today, we're going to have a couple of open mics, so people are going to be wandering around, and then you can actually just stand up and ask your questions. So we'll do that right after the break, and then we have a video that we want to show you, and then we're going to finish with some very special guests that I will introduce to you a little bit later, and we'll do our interview format. And that will conclude the town hall for today. Okay, and before I jump into some of the items I want to talk about today, I do want to take a moment and let you all know that at the Free the Spirit Festival, we raised $175,000 this year. Congratulations. Thank you to you all, especially thank you to Juliette, her staff, and our Champions Committee. And we had one individual, I think it raised over $14,000, one gentleman, so a good friend of St.Amant. But thanks again. Okay, so I'm going to start with, we've had lots of questions about the environmental scans that we've done in the organization in the last few years, and I wanted to explain why we do them. We've actually now done 6, I believe. We started, I think, in the autism and community residential areas. So the reason we do them, the reasons are varied. Sometimes it's because a team is asking for some assistance to work through some issues. Sometimes it's just about an area going through a huge amount of change, and it makes sense to check in with everybody and find out how everybody's doing so that we can move forward. What we have done is we've hired People First HR Services, so they're an outside third party, and they come in and for that particular area they interview either the majority, usually it is the majority of the staff, confidentially, and then they take that information away. They don't ever tell us who by name they meet with. They're more focused on what suggestions and feedback that individual staff have. They take those and they put them into recommendations and themes that they provide back to us as leaders in the organization. And I just wanted to address, because there has been some questions around, why are we doing these environmental scans? Are they helpful? And I can tell you from our experience, they are very helpful. In some areas, I'll use examples that we've had one area where they said they were kind of curious about how the funding works and the political structure, and what are the kind of the behind the scenes kind of conversations that we're having on behalf of the people that they support in their area. And we were happy to share that. We didn't know that people were interested in that level of organization, but it's those kinds of things that we're working on. But ultimately, the benefits of doing an environmental scan is we're saying to you as staff that we value you. If you're happier in your teams and your jobs, you're more engaged here at St.Amant, and ultimately the goal is for the people that we support, if we have great functioning teams, they're focused on the kids and the adults that we're here to provide services for. So it's all about creating good organizational teamwork. The next issue I want to address is our cafeteria, and I just want to acknowledge that I know that the change has been difficult with changing the hours to, I think it's 2:30 now, And especially for our evening staff, they no longer have the opportunity to purchase a meal and are having to kind of think ahead and pack a meal, and I appreciate your understanding. But I also just want to talk a little bit about the costs of running a cafeteria and some of our food services, that some of the things that we're having to deal with from a leadership perspective is that when a meal costs us $9, but the person's paying $6 for it, that $3 is not the most efficient use of our money here. And ultimately, at the end of the day, if we would love to be able to spend more money on people's care. So please stay tuned. We're continuing to try and work on our kind of food services ends of it, and trying to make things even more efficient, and we'll have more information in the future. I also know that in response to reducing the hours for the cafeteria, we have the cafe cart, and we have some volunteers who have been graciously kind of manning a station where you can go purchase a snack and a drink, etc. And I want to acknowledge all of the volunteers and Tracy and her staff who have put a huge amount of effort to make this happen, and thank you very much for that. We hope the cafe cart maybe in the future could become one of our social enterprises, where somebody that lives with a disability can have the opportunity of employment, of being self-employed, and gaining a living wage from that. So stay tuned on that. And just on the social enterprise side, we're in conversations with the other communities of service within the Catholic Health Corporation, looking at where there might be opportunities to create a social enterprise. And a social enterprise is really about, there's lots of different definitions, but one of the ones that we're really focused on right now is, can we create meaningful opportunities for employment and even maybe self-employment for people with disabilities? We know that we spend a fair bit of money on lawn care and snow clear, etc., with some of our homes and some of our sites now. Is it possible that that could become a business that we could have people working at, and also then go out and get more customers in the community and provide meaningful work for people? So we are working on those ideas, and there will be more to come in the near future. Here's another question that we get sometimes. And this one can sometimes be a bit uncomfortable for us as leaders, and even for you asking it. But some people will, from time to time, say, why are there individuals leaving our organization? Like I'm talking specifically about employees here. So we know that some individuals come and work here, and either through a process of kind of discovering their values don't really match up with St.Amant's, they make a decision to leave. Sometimes it's just simply the work. They don't really enjoy it here, and they leave. So those decisions are maybe a little bit easier for people to understand, because those are the employee making a decision. But you also have to understand that the employer has an ability to kind of have that conversation too around, does the person fit from a values perspective? Is the person doing the work and the job that they're supposed to do? And we take that responsibility, all of us as leaders, very seriously. So from time to time there will be decisions. Sometimes it's the individual making it for themselves, and sometimes it's us with the individual. But what I would ask from you is that you have some trust in your leadership here, that we are making decisions on the best interests of the organization based on the values of the organization. Now, when something like that happens, we have to balance your right to know information with the individual's right to privacy. So that's sometimes where the rubber hits the road. That's sometimes where there's rumors out there around what's going on, but we can't really speak to them because we're trying to maintain the privacy around that. And all I would ask is that you please understand that. We will give you information when we can, and sometimes we just won't be able to do that. Engagement. We've done 3 engagement surveys now. We participated in 3 through the Winnipeg Regional Health Authority. So we have 3 years of data. We have 3 years of scores. And just to remind you all, when the first year we did it, our engagement score overall for the organization was 61. Our second year it went to 67. And our third year we went to 71. Now, that only means something if you're kind of comparing it against, other entities within the WRHA, other employers, etc. So I'm going to do that comparison for you. We did better than everybody else, with the exception of one small clinic called the Pan-Am Clinic. So you should all be very proud of our engagement score. That being said, we still have some work to do. But before I get to that, and I tell you what some of the themes are that came out of the last consultation process, because we did the engagement survey, we had the feedback from that survey, we asked our leaders to go back to the teams and do some work around what do you as staff teams think are the most important areas, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But before I get there, I just want to make another really good announcement, and that is we just found out that we're, again this year, one of Manitoba's top employers here at St.Amant. So congratulations to all of you. That should help us in our recruitment efforts, which we're constantly involved in. So the three themes that I'm going to speak to are career opportunities, recognition, and managing performance. In regards to the career opportunities piece, in January of 18, so just in a couple of months now, wow, that's amazing, it is just a couple of months away, we will be introducing some new performance evaluation formats and an ability to do developmental plans. And so we think that's really important that everybody kind of use a similar process and format. So that's coming out very soon. We know that from a career perspective, people that work here are wanting to be able to have that conversation about, if I do this, or if I really think I would like that job at some point in time, what do I need to do? What's my path look like to get there? Now, I've addressed this before in the past, that we will work with people internally to help develop you, around that plan. That's our commitment to you. But one of the other things is that if we have a whole bunch of people that all want that same position or those similar positions, and there's only a few of them, we still need to figure out a way to help employees get where they want to. And sometimes that might mean that they leave the organization and then come back, and so that's okay. As an organization, we want you to develop. In the end, we think that if we're helping everybody develop in the path that they want, we'll be the winners too as an organization. You will as individuals, and we will as an organization. We're also going to be introducing a new learning management system. So it'll be online, it'll be easier to link to new courses, and I think the events calendar that will be part of it will be much better from a user-friendly perspective. The next area I want to talk about is recognition, and this comes up in almost every conversation when you're talking about how do you support employees. Employees are asking to be recognized more often. None of us should be surprised by that. Everybody likes recognition. Now the one trick is that not everybody likes it the exact same way. So one of the things that we would strongly recommend is that if you like to be recognized in a certain way, when you're having a conversation with your leader, if you can kind of let them know that, that's really helpful to the leader. But under the kind of auspices of recognition, I want to talk about an example of something that happens in this organization from time to time. Every once in a while, I'll get an email from someone describing a situation that they think is just phenomenal. So the one story I have chosen to share with you today is of an individual that was supported here at River Road. This occurred a few months ago. And the supervisor is basically in the email describing what she saw on the evening of what I'm going to describe. So we had this person we were supporting who was palliative. And he was just hours to a day away from the end of his life. And what this supervisor described in the email was how we had two nurses in the room, one on each side of the individual holding each one of that person's hands, one of them with tears coming down. She had gone out and bought the person a non-alcoholic beer and was putting that on a swab because the person couldn't drink, but they could still get the taste. One of the resident assistants was at the foot of the bed, rubbing the individual's leg and just comforting them. And during those hours, she went on in the email and described how someone would be reading to him. No one ever left him alone. All of the staff came in and out of that individual's room in the hours prior to his death. And she was just saying, I don't know if you hear these kind of stories from time to time, but I just want to share that with you. Absolutely powerful. Not probably the time you rush into the room and say, I want to recognize you all, but I think it is, I did want to share it with you today because I think that's the kind of interactions and care that we're known for here. And so we should share those stories with each other. And in doing so, we are recognizing each other for the important work that we do every day. So thank you. I don't know all those staff by name, but I want to say thank you to them all here today. In addition to sharing stories, I mean, we do things like long service awards. In some of our meetings, I know in our leadership meetings, we have a time for recognition. I think today we're going to make a little bit of time when you're, and actually should mention this right now, that when you write your questions out, you can write a question out, or you can just choose to write a recognition out for somebody in the organization that you'd like to say thank you or recognizing something they did. So please keep that in mind. Managing performance was the third area, the theme that came out of the engagement survey and the feedback from you. So one of the areas that we know we need to clarify is that for some of the parts of the organization, there are individuals that report to sometimes more than one person. So they might, I'll use here at River Road, for instance, some people have, someone on the unit that they kind of report to on a regular basis for their work assignments, but clinically they might report, if they're a nurse, through the clinical piece too. Or, and we have other positions that report dually. And for managing performance, that can be sometimes a challenge. So we, as an employer, really need to know what we're doing. And those people need to know what their role is in providing feedback and managing performance on a daily basis. So sometimes that matrix management structure can be a bit challenging if we're not kind of communicating on a regular basis. So I just use that as an example of an area where we're going to have some conversations and we're going to try and be clear on roles and responsibilities around how we manage people's performance on a regular basis. The bottom line is the engagement surveys, they do provide us with really valuable feedback. We base the strategies around the training that we're going to have, the conversations we're going to have from sometimes with our HR perspective around how we should approach things. So please participate in the future. Now, saying that, this year the WHA has taken a year off from that. Just before I go into the next topic, which is kind of the more forward thinking, I want to address a couple of areas where there has been either attention in the press or people come and ask me questions. So one of them is the Winnipeg Regional Health Authority has been going through substantial change. All you have to do is pick up your paper or listen to your radio right now, and you know that there is significant change. What I need to tell you from a St.Amant perspective is that no one has come over here and said, and we need to do this with St.Amant. Okay? I'm just letting you know that. Now, secondary to that, if they do come and say they want to have a conversation, and we just finished some sessions that I'm going to talk about in a minute with the River Road staff here. I got a lot of questions around, or a few questions around, if the WHA was to come here and say that they know that we're reducing our census and that we're going to reduce the number of staff by a corresponding amount. So if you're cutting the number of people that live here by 50% or 30%, we think we can take 30% from your budget. I just want to remind you, I have talked to this in the past, but it is a very, very serious conversation for us. We would not accept that. And what I mean by that is that we have fought for years now to get where we're headed in being able to reduce the census here, to improve the ratio so that we can provide a better quality of life for the people that we support, because we recognize that they need to be in restraint less, they need more privacy, they need a better quality of life, again, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later. But we have a strong argument from a human rights perspective. We, so far, have been very successful in having that conversation with the Winnipeg Regional Health staff and leadership, and so I'm still confident that they recognize that that is what we are doing here. Now, I can't tell you that at some point in time somebody's not going to come over here and want to have a conversation with us. When they do, and when we know what that conversation's about, I will share that with you, okay? I make that commitment to you. But right now, there is no master plan that involves St.Amant. One comment I would make is I think they're probably busy enough with the focus on the work that they have, and that will probably keep them busy for the next couple of years. So the next area I want to talk about is we're in year 4 of our strategic plan. So next year, 2018, is the last year of our 5-year strategic plan. And some of the things that we've been focusing on, we have lots of projects that will continue to go into our last 5 years, but probably one of the more significant ones that I want to talk about is the work that's being done here at River Road. And just recently we had 10 sessions, and I think we got almost all of the staff at River Road to attend each of those sessions, where we talked about the change that is coming. And what I mean by that is that when we get from we were at 206 beds, when we get down to 115, when everybody has their individual room, what that means for staff is that your jobs will change, your responsibilities will change. You'll have more time to spend with the people that live here, which means that things like helping people build friendships, staff might have time to actually do that. There'll be more time for individual activities and outings, and the meal times will be less lonely. Because right now we know we have people, because our staff are so busy doing care, having their meals on their own, especially the individuals who are tube fed. Staff would love to be able to sit with them and have a meaningful meal, but in the future we think that those kinds of things will be possible. So that's the conversation that we've started, and what we've committed to is by April of next year coming back to staff with a framework that would include how leadership is going to be provided throughout River Road, what the different roles are, and how we think that work will be organized here, and how we can kind of start as we move forward. We think that in about a year and a half that we'll be pretty close to the 115. I think as of today we have about 138 individuals here at River Road. Yeah, so that's just to give you a bit of a flavor of one of the big projects that we have going on in year 5 of our strategic plan. But also in that 5th year, in our last year of this strategic plan, we need to start, actually before that, we're going to start right now. We have already sent out, I think, an invitation to staff to participate in our next strategic plan, in the development of our next strategic plan. And it's going to look a little bit like this. We have, there will be an ability for every employee to have a voice in the strategic plan, either providing information directly to Gino Braha, who does our strategic plan, in an email. You can write it out. We'll figure out a way to get that there to him. So that's one way. The other is that we're going to have focus groups for staff, for families, and for other community stakeholders that will be part of the process. Overseeing our strategic planning process, we will have an advisory committee. And on that advisory committee is a staff member from every area within our organization, not senior staff. We've tried to choose people either in middle management positions or other parts of the organization. And we have families. We have Doreen, I see you sitting there. Doreen is sitting on the advisory committee. We have, because we've started to do work under Jordan's principle, we have representatives from FNIB. There's a couple of federal government people will sit on that. An Indigenous person from AMC, and then we have some advocacy organizations that will also be part of that advisory group. Their job is to make sure that our strategic plan process, that the questions that we're asking people are the right questions, that we're actually talking to the right people. And then the other group that we spent quite a bit of time talking to is the people that we actually serve. In the last strategic plan. We did individual interviews. We did a few different ways of engaging individuals and the individuals that know them really well to make sure that we have their voice in the strategic plan. So all of those voices will come together and will help us create the next 5-year plan. We know that our board, their job is to revisit. They're going to have another look at our mission, our vision, and then create what are the larger end statements that this organization will focus on in the next 5 years. They're getting together next Monday night and all day Tuesday to do some of that work, and our senior management will be engaging that process with them. So that starts next week, and then you'll see announcements and invitations and a process to engage around the focus groups. You'll see multiple opportunities for you as individuals to submit your suggestions on what we should be focusing on in the next 5 years. That being said, we know that there's lots of unfinished work from our first 5 years, because this plan that we're in right now, the one that we launched 4 years ago, created substantial change within the organization. I don't think anybody can argue that. And we have some work. I've been spending time talking about River Road and the transition and the new kind of health model that we're going to create here. That's going to take time. It doesn't happen in 1 year or even 2 years. So we know that'll be part of our next 5-year plan. We know that as an organization, we are recognized because we have lots of skills in the areas of autism. We have clinical expertise, we have nursing expertise, we have psychology expertise that, so we try and match that expertise with the needs that are out in the community. For instance, you don't see us starting up an employment agency for people with disabilities because there's lots of them out there. And so we really focus on the unmet needs that are in the community, and that's very consistent with where we come from. The Grey Nuns were focused on what are the unmet needs in the community, the things that nobody else is able to do. That will still be a core part of who we are. Also, I think we all need to recognize that many of the decisions, the principles, and the direction that we take as we move forward are based on human rights. Whether it's the UN Declaration around people with disabilities, or whether it's the Vulnerable Persons Act here in Manitoba that in 1996, took us from a place where we used to talk about how we protect and kind of direct people and control them to make sure that they're well cared for, to where we support and we facilitate and we enable. And that's a big shift that we've been involved in, and we're still working at that. And so that becomes a driver for how we do our work in the next 5 years. So that really is the majority of what I wanted to say to you today. So I hope I stuck to my 20 minutes. And we're going to have a break now, and we'll take questions. I'm going to strongly encourage if people could ask their question. We'd love to. We'll start that with that piece right after. So the mics will come around, and then we'll. I'm not sure exactly how long Jen's kind of allotted for questions from the mic, and then we're going to. I'll address some of the written questions. Okay, and then we'll move into the video part, and then our interviews. So thanks everyone for your attention. We'll be back in 10 minutes. Okay, thanks.